Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and as we await the next expansion announcement, which should be on Tuesday, November the 1st, stay tuned. We're gonna have everything covered and we'll start reviewing all the new cards and all of that. But before that all happens, what we like to do on the channel is go over the most recent expansion, go through the mini set, go through every single class and determine whether, at least in my opinion, the expansion was a success or a failure. And of course, you guys can share in the comments below whether you hated it, loved it, were indifferent, you don't care, you're confused, you're lost, you still don't know what a runestone is, you're sad that you know what runestones is, whatever it is, share it in the comments below. And also, if you feel like I've earned your subscription, you want to help support the channel, drop a subscription on the channel, give the video a like, it helps us out a ton. Castle Nathria, it launched last August alongside the Maw and Disorder mini set, which came out last month, and well, the game has changed a lot. And let's go through class by class, which class thrived and which classes sucked. By the way, Warrior. Should we just exclude Warrior? I don't know. Anyway, starting out with Demon Hunter, there was two main archetypes really supported. We saw the aggro variant where you kind of wanted to dump your hand, just go face a lot. The other archetype was Relics, which started off very slow, got multiple buffs, and is now kind of a deck that can really target slower decks out there, but still struggles with the early game. Aggro DH also got buffed, but has not been too strong the entire expansion cycle, and overall, it's basically been Relic DH or bust for Demon Hunter, and it's been like a tier 2, tier 3 archetype. People enjoy playing it, in particular, hitting the high rolls off Relic Dimensions and getting absurd mana cheat could lead to pretty spectacular games, but overall, Demon Hunter's kind of just been in the background this expansion, and none of the old archetypes really carried through to be all that great, and as a result, DH has just been kind of whatever. Druid saw the addition of like Death Rattle Druid, which never really took off, but a whole nature build around Topier, Ramp, and all that was extremely successful to the point where Guff got nerfed, and well, the class is still a very defining part of the meta, mostly Ramp and aggro, with the Death Rattle and big spell nature of the whole class so far not really being realized. Hunter saw the introduction of a ton of great beast support, with a little bit of spell stuff thrown in there, but overall, Hunter dominated a good amount of this latest expansion cycle, largely in part because of the Wild Seed mechanic, basically giving yourself a dormant beast that would either give you weapon, have taunt, give rush, and almost every part of those got nerfed in some way, with every Wild Seed card giving full dust multiple times. But overall, Hunter loved this expansion, and despite the fact it's been nerfed countless times, it feels like this set, it's still doing really well. It was kind of refreshing to see such a board-based deck do so well, even if it was a bit overtuned. But Hunter absolutely loved this expansion. Mage saw the introduction of an entire archetype in Skeleton Mage, where you would get a bunch of skeletons, bring them back with Kel'Thuzad the Inevitable, and this is actually one of the weakest cards in that whole thing, and doesn't even see a ton of play. There was also Secret Mage thrown in the mix that got a bunch of additions and buffs and all of that, and yeah, just doesn't really see play outside of Wild. But overall, Mage thrived as well with cards like Solid Alibi, giving Mage a way to survive this location, got nerfed and is still incredible. Frozen Touch is just a ridiculous reach. Cold Case again giving survivability to Mage as well as getting some damage on the board, and even a card like Deathborn has done particularly well in slower variants, and Mage thrived. Also led to the nerfing of the hero card Dawngrass, which is still pretty darn busted, but yeah, Mage definitely enjoyed this expansion. Paladin saw two archetypes majorly supported in Silverhand Recruit Paladin as well as Pure Paladin, and neither did very well until the mini set came out. The mini set, which I haven't mentioned a ton of because, well, the mini set was a huge bust, only really helping out Paladin. Order in the Court being one of the best cards Paladin has seen in a very long time, basically always giving you Cariel and making Pure Paladin somewhat viable, and the Countess, which got a buff, is still not even really run that much in these Control Paladin archetypes. Paladin was pretty much MIA for most of the expansion until that mini set came out, and still isn't exactly thriving, but doing well enough. Priest saw some Thief support as well as like just buffing, whether it's a Naga buff, a Boon of the Ascended, Pelagos, and just incredible cards like Cathedral of Atonement that could go into any deck. We saw tons of Priest decks do very well this expansion. Quest Priest, Naga Priest, Boon Priest, even Elwyn Boar Priest. There's like a Miracle Scamp Priest. There's just a bunch of Priest decks that did incredibly well and got a lot of great tools from this expansion. Even a card like Clean the Scene just fit in extremely well into multiple controlling variants, and I think Priest really enjoyed this set. Rogue was a different different story. It started off a bit weak, then Edwin got buffed, it became broken, then they nerfed Edwin back, and it's been a pretty darn good class since. High legend players love it. We talked about that, and they got two main variants. A miracle variant where you're trying to cheat out cards or create a giant weapon, or secrets where you're disrupting your opponent and just all around trying to be really annoying. This location, so damn good that it sees tons of play in Wild, and Rogue got a lot of good stuff and has been all the way from being a tier 1 juggernaut to bottom of the road. But overall, Rogue had a lot to do. Just seemed like a lot of Rogue players didn't exactly love what they were doing. Shaman saw two major archetypes really supported, Evolve and Totems. Neither of them particularly took off. They kind of just went into decks that already exist, whether it be Control Shaman and basically Control Shaman. There is an Evolve Shaman out there, but overall, Totem Shaman hasn't worked in Standard. It put the Totem stuff, even Shaman, over the top in Wild. At the end of the day, at least in Standard, the set really was very minimal in impact for Standard. Warlock came right out the gate of this expansion completely broken, with Imp Warlock seeing this location, Vile Library being nerfed. There was some Shadow Spell support, but overall, it's been all about the Imps. They've been insane. You've coupled it with the curses from the prior expansion, and yeah, this set was incredibly good for Warlock, but only if you really like to play Imps for the most part. And yeah, Warrior has Enrage Warrior, I guess, in like, I guess a hand buff there. Warrior's just been awful pretty much the entire expansion. They got Enrage Warrior. It can do okay in the right matchups, but overall, Warrior, absolute fail from this expansion and is still not recovered from the mass nerfing it received during Sunken City. And normally I kind of skim over neutrals when reviewing the entire set, but honestly, the neutrals defined Standard more than anything else. Prince Renethal changed the game for Hearthstone, allowing players to have decks of 40 as well as extra health, so control decks got incredible value, a bit more survivability, but it also opened up avenues for mid-range decks to survive, or just greedy decks in general. Prince Renethal, absolute game changer, and at one point was in nearly 60% of decks until Big Beast Hunter got nerfed, and well, it's more at like 40% or something like that, but still, it's amazing to see how one card like this can change everything. Theotar is another card that absolutely defined the meta as well in over 40% of decks. Being able to just steal a key card, a win condition, has well led to a lot of controversy. The most controversial card, I would say, in Hearthstone history, and again, defines the meta. It defines a ton of games. Whether he hits or he misses, that can be the determining part of the game, and that has led a lot of players frustrated. And the last big bomb for neutrals is Sire Denathrius, which is again in over 40% of decks, wraps up so many different games because the damage output this card creates makes almost every deck have an OTK within its hand as long as they're flooding the board with minions throughout the game. It even saw the nerfing of Kael'thas Sinstrider to try and alleviate that so you couldn't couple it with a Brand Bronzebeard, but overall, Denathrius hasn't been hit too hard, still in like half the decks, still ends up being very similar, and for me, this is the biggest fault of Castle Nathria. I really enjoyed the card design, I really enjoyed the flavor. I thought there was a lot of cool stuff in this expansion, but at the end of the day, when so many games were decided by Sire Denathrius, by a Theotar, or just some scam high roll, it made, for me, the gameplay get boring very quickly. Every game started feeling the same. I lose to Theotar, I lose to Denathrius, and well, I've seen the drop in viewership, the drop in interest in Hearthstone these past couple of months because, well, it's just not fun to face the same finisher that's neutral that can be run by every deck over and over and over again, or get disrupted by Theotar over and over and over again. It became repetitive, it became frustrating, and coupled with a card like Prince Renethal that makes the games a bit longer, can make it drag on a bit. When it's being dragged on to have the same end result nearly every game, to me, that made the meta just frustrating at the end of the day. I love Prince Renethal. I think it's going to be a great addition to the game, but when it's coupled with the problematic cards like Sire Denathrius and Theotar, it just made every game feel like a drag, a repetitive drag. As a result, I'm not going to say Denathrius was a failure. I really did like the expansion, but I think it was a big mistake to leave Denathrius, to leave Theotar in the state that they were pretty much the entire expansion. Yes, Theotar increased in a mana cost. Yes, they nerfed Kael'thas, But at the end of the day, those cards felt pretty much the same way, regardless, pre and post nerf, and just led to that experience for me where I'm like, I just kind of want to do other stuff, and it got really dull pretty quick. So overall, coupled with the fact that the mini set was it just was the least impactful mini set we've ever seen, and the repetitive nature of a Denathrius, of a Theotar, I gotta give the expansion a little bit low on the rating. I'm not gonna say it's an outright failure because I love a lot of the set, but I do think it was a failure of them to leave these type of cards to be the dominant meta definers for so freaking long. Anyways, let me know in the comments below. Do you agree, disagree, or have a completely different take? Let me know what you guys have, and check in tomorrow. We'll have a brand new video. Do you guys know it's always a brand new video? Anyways, if you enjoyed the brand new video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. And stay salty, my friends.